Welcome to part 2 of our stitch along, and we're going to be working a little bit more on the gingerbread house. Today we're going to be working on the roof and the door, and so I'll show you how to get that set up. So forgive my mess back here because it is Christmas and, well, not Christmas yet, but we're prepping Christmas orders and my office is a sight. So let me turn this around. I have a beautiful, beautiful tree. She hasn't shed all her leaves yet. And we're gonna get set up here. And I'm gonna set this over here so that it's possible to see in the background. I have really been struggling with the video quality on Instagram lately, so we're gonna do our best here. All right. I don't know, for some reason lately when I've been doing things on Instagram, it changes everything to this grayish scale instead of bright colors. So, how is everyone this morning? I'm going to lay this back here so we can kind of see our finished thing that we're working on. And this pattern is available in my shop. And I just decided the easiest way to go through instructions like this was to do a live. So hopefully everybody can see that well. Let me see if I can get add a little bit of extra light. All right, so today for the roof, we're going to be using 2 strands of our white thread. And this is just the regular white thread. It doesn't have to be the glittery thread. And where we left off in the instructions was to lay the roof on top. And this, I'm just going to read the instructions too. So if you're following the instructions, we had the roof cut out. I marked it and cut on the plain side, and so the glittery side is on the other. But remember, we're using heat erasing pens that come in the kit, and so we can erase any pen lines later. So in the instructions, it'll say lay your roof on top, just barely overlapping the edge of the brown felt, and attach it with a running stitch in white, 2 strands just across the top of the triangle. So basically we have like a little corner here and a little corner here. And so we're going to start, I think honestly, kind of like we did the roof, I think it's best just so it ends up even to start on the top of the middle. So it's going to be the same thing as we did for the roof. Whoops. Tie a knot in the end. Forgot that part. Okay, so we're going to start, ooh, surprise. Here comes my brown thread through the back because I did not trim it. This is a great start, isn't it? Okay, hopefully you can have a laugh at my expense. And we're just going to make a series of tiny stitches. This is the thing with live video. You don't have like outtakes and bloopers. It's happening in real time. And we're just going to do a running stitch along the top here. Little stitches. Now I know this is probably going to be hard to see in the video, but how I described it in the instructions is it's only about 1 millimeter or like 1/16 of an inch down. Let me check my math here. Let's see, we got half, quarter, eighth, 16th. I would say is pretty close to about 1 millimeter. And it's we're that far from the edge, and then we're just making about the same length in a stitch length, maybe a little longer. And I forgot to trim the other day my brown thread, so that's what was peeking through there. And you're going to go the whole way down to, oh, there's an extra needle. We're full of bloopers today. Whole way down to the corner. Is anyone working on any Christmas projects? Is anyone avoiding any Christmas things till after Thanksgiving? Maybe that's the case. So just little gingerbread stitch here. Gingerbread house stitching. I'm curious, I'll have to do a poll on my Instagram to see who likes gingerbread flavor. If you're watching, you'll have to tell me. I actually am not a big fan of gingerbread flavor. I like all the cinnamon things. I like all the caramel things. I like all the mint things. But gingerbread is, I think it's very cute to look at. And I don't mind the smell, but it is not my preference in flavors. So the running stitch is perfect for this kind of project. It just secures the felt without having to overstitch, I guess I would say. So if you were stitching something elaborate on the felt, it really depresses. I don't know how else to say that. It kind of depresses where you stitch or compresses, I guess. And so the running stitch is nice because it loosely attaches it without there being too much depressing of the felt, if that makes sense. All right, so that's one side of the roof. And what I like about that is once you finish, I like not having the stitching on this side. I think it looks much better to have the stitching on the top and then to let your snow hang free here. It's more loose and fluffy, if that makes sense. So you're just going to continue also and do the rest of the roof over here. And I'm going to stop for a minute and switch over to brown. So the next step after you do your roof, because I don't want to take up too much time just on this part. We're going to take our brown again, 2 strands, and grab your door shape. stick your door inside your little cutout there. Okay. And we're going to be stitching a back stitch around this. So my line is pretty close to the edge of my door. This is what my finished one looks like, although it's missing a French knot. And we're going to go around the edge here with a back stitch. So I'm using 2 strands of the brown. And we're going to be real close to the edge of the door. And the back stitch, remember, the first stitch is forward and then the rest are back. So you skip a stitch length. And then go back down into the previous hole where you last went down. Skip a stitch length. Go back into the previous hole. Now, you can see here, I'm going to take this one out because I'm not happy with it. It's okay if our stitches are a little uneven, but this is a little too much for my liking. And this is the trickier thing with doing the running stitch. You don't have to be as exacting. And I actually think the chain stitch will be easier, but I think probably one of the hardest stitches, in my opinion, on the felt is to do a back stitch. It's just hard to keep these stitches straight on felt, I feel like. So we'll just do our best here. And as I described in the last video, if there are any parts that seem like kind of uneven, that's okay. It adds character and cutesy. It makes it more cartoon looking, I guess, for the gingerbread house. If you want to move in a little bit on the felt, you can. You don't have to do it this close to the edge. I just really wanted this this one to be like kind of the outline shadow of the door. Now when you're going around something like the rounded top here, if you're going for a really round look, you can shorten the length of your stitches. And then the lines on our door are also going to be just a back stitch. Now I do have in my links on my bio, I do have my stands, my embroidery stands linked in my Amazon storefront. But embroidery stands are not a requirement. The main reason that I use it here is just to keep it steady for filming. But I would say 90% of the stitching I do is just me on my couch, not using a stand. Usually I'm just holding it. For something like this where you're laying the felt down, and it can be nice to free up a hand, because then you can hold it down with one hand. Okay, and then our last stitch here, I'm going to go right outside the door and then back into my last hole. Okay, we don't need to do a line on the bottom of the door, so I'm going to start again on this row, and I'm going to go just off of the fabric so it holds the edge of that door down. It's not that important because we're going to be covering this with the snow at the bottom, but I just like, for the sake of working on it, I just like to tack it down at the edge, kind of like we did with the corners of the house. And we're doing the back stitch here for the door. Oops, I just pulled out of my needle. Just rethreading my, I'm gonna trim this, rethreading my needle does not want to thread today. Okay, there we go. Originally, I was just going to do no cutout. We were just going to stitch the door, but I really like having the lighter tan. I think it looks nice. So you're going to stitch those 3 lines of the door until you get to the top. And I'm going to skip over here to the doorknob. On my first one that I did, I forgot to add the doorknob before I filmed a bunch of things. So we're going to come up at the little doorknob, and my string is kind of short here, but I'll show you. We're going to hold it with one hand, go around, go from, let's see, I go from the front and come up through the hole 2 times, and then while you're still holding the thread, insert your needle back down in the same hole or right next to it, and then slowly release it with your other hand, and there's our little French knot doorknob. So cute. And so you'll finish these 2 lines here, the top of your roof, and then I'm going to show you the next part for the snow, because I want to help you get your snow centered correctly. So I'm going to take it off for this part. And tie my knot up here. Okay, for the snow at the bottom, remember that we traced it out and cut it along the edge of our outer hoop so that it would fit perfectly and slightly cover this. I'll come down a little bit here. Okay, so for this next part, we need to take this out of the hoop, because when you stitch this on, we don't really want this to just be hanging freely. We want it to be attached to the fabric like this. But you cannot get your needle up to stitch that close to the fabric because you have the inner hoop. So we're actually going to need to take it out of the hoop for a minute. Okay. Slide the bottom of your hoop down. Wait a second. I'm going to show you something else. Hold on. Let me pop this back on, or close to it. Okay, if this is where we want it to be, before you pop it out, we're going to rewind here a second. Remember how we traced around our house where we wanted the snow to be? We're going to trace around the top. We traced here to let us know where we needed to position our house. We're going to do that real quick here on the snow. This is where we want our snow to be. Okay, the top of it. Take it out. And now we're going to slide our hoop down because we need space to work within our hoop. Slide it down. Pop your hoop back on. It doesn't have to be much farther down, just enough that you can get to the edge here. So you can kind of see where our hoop was previously, and this is where our snow line is going to be. So make sure you pull your fabric tight again. Tighten it up with either pliers or a screwdriver because these are tighter hoops. We want it to be real snug in there for nice even stitching. Okay. And then we're going to lay our snow back on. Line it up with our pen marks. Okay. Take 2 strands again of your white. Now, I thought about playing Christmas music in the background today on my live, but I do upload this to YouTube, and that might create some licensing issues. So, guess I need to find some royalty-free Christmas music. All right, so we've laid our snow back on. And this time we're going to start from a corner. So we'll start, I'm going to start down here. And you might, if you run into your inside hoop in the back, if you're running into that with your needle, then just open your hoop back up and move your fabric back down a little bit. Your fabric up, your hoop down, sorry. I've been getting my phrases all mixed up the past 2 days. And we're doing the bottom first. We are also going to attach the top of the snow, and you can see in my finished one that I went the entire way around the snow. But we want to make sure that this bottom gets attached just where we want it to be. So we're going to do our running stitch with those 2 strands in white. Whole way around the edge. I hope this was a helpful trick to you. If you have, trick for you, if you have watched any other or follow any accounts that do embroidery and you're like, how did they stitch all the way up to the edge like that? I actually have another pattern where I did yarn French knots all the way up to the edge and pretty much the whole way around the hoop. So if you're ever wanting to do that, what you have to do is just take your hoop off and you just have to reposition it while you stitch a section. So like we moved our fabric up while we stitched down here, and then you're going to take your hoop off and reposition your fabric back down so that it lines up with the edge of the with the edge of the hoop, and then you'll be able to go edge to edge. It's a handy little trick. Honestly, I feel like I stitch a lot faster when I'm not using a hoop, but I mean a stand. See that? So then when we take off our hoop, we're going to move our fabric back down, and this should line up right with the edge of our hoop. I think we can fit one more little stitch here. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to do one little stitch here, and then I'm going to show you how I move it back up. So I want to make sure I do my one that's closest. But when we stitch this, you're going to go the whole way across. You can see we overlapped our house. And so when you stitch through here, you're going to be going through 2 layers of felt. Okay? But it shouldn't be too tricky if you're using a thin needle. Because we're only using 2 strands of thread for this, you can use a smaller needle. And let's take this. Okay, I still have to finish my roof there and my door, but I didn't want this live to be too long. Okay, so you can scoot it back down a little bit. We're going to loosen up our hoop, put it on, and then I'm going to pull. Pull this down. So you get right there at the edge. Just slowly tug, keep tugging at it. You can loosen up one edge if you need to, and then tug it down until you get it where you want it. And then tighten your hoop back up. Now, if you have any separating between your door and your house here, what you could do, because I have a little separation on this one, and it didn't really happen as much on this one. But if that happens to you, what you could do is do another outline around the door on the darker brown part, and just kind of pull the felt down a little bit. It'll stretch a little bit, and you can stitch along there just to secure it so you don't feel like it's flopping. Okay, and then you're going to finish stitching around your snow until you get to the other side. And then we've got all our pieces on, and the next video we will just show how we are decorating the house. Sorry for my bloopers and my mixed up words today. Guess I need some more coffee. Alrighty, I'm going to stop here, and if you are done with this video, then you can finish the top of your roof and your door around the snow, and then we'll be decorating in the next video. Thanks.